Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy? Sports and Fitness Rants. I'm back, guys. Hit that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back, man. Got another great video for you guys today. As usual, man, you guys know the deal on this channel. So about setting the record straight, stopping the lies, stopping the narratives, stopping them from rewriting history, guys. And in this video, that's what we're going to do. We are going to set the record straight and stop Iman Shumpert from rewriting history. Because that's what I heard from Iman Shumpert in this clip that was sent to me. Once again, shout out to my man BTG the Don, who sent me this clip on Instagram. Once again, I am truly humbled, guys, by all your support, man. You guys send me emails and messages, and I know sometimes it takes me a little bit to get back to you guys, but forgive me. I try to read everything and look at everything and respond to you guys. So I do really appreciate it, all the support, guys. But shout out to my man BTG the Don. Send me this clip of Iman Shumpert from the other day talking on the podcast. Once again, another NBA player talking on the podcast, but talking nonsense. I don't know where these guys, where all these podcasts come from, and these guys are doing all these interviews, and I don't even understand how they get on these topics. But he was talking about the 1996 NBA Finals, and this dude tried to rewrite history and say that when Ron Harper got hurt, in the 1996 NBA Finals, that Gary Payton was doing the Bulls dirty, and then all of a sudden they switched and put Scottie Pippen on Gary Payton, and that changed the series around. This dude really said that. He said that it was Scottie Pippen's defense on Gary Payton that turned the series around because Gary Payton was killing the Bulls. I don't know what the hell this dude Iman Shumpert is talking about, but we're going to really educate him in this video and set the record straight, like I said, and stop this fool from trying to rewrite history. I don't know what he's talking about. And I want to thank you guys, everyone across the world, everyone across the states has been supporting my channel. Once again, guys, I am truly humbled by all the support, man. It really means a lot. Like I said, once again, shout out to my man BTG the Don, everybody in the membership, thank you. And you guys know what to do. Turn the volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Remember, these videos are for educational purposes. And let's roll. So, yes, guys, excuse me for a second. I want to talk about a clip I heard of Iman Shumpert at a podcast talking about the 1996 NBA Finals. Now, I've done several videos on the 96 Finals and a lot of the lies and narratives that are surrounding the 96 Finals. I've had people tell me that Michael Jordan choked in the 96 Finals. I actually had people tell me that. So Michael Jordan choked in a Finals that he won. Think about how that sounds. I've heard people say that, oh, Michael Jordan choked in the 96 Finals. I've heard people say that Michael Jordan was carried in the 96 Finals. I've heard people say that Dennis Rodman should have won the Finals MVP in the 96 Finals. I mean, just all kinds of insane narratives and lies that leads me to believe and really highlights to me that you weren't there watching the 96 Finals. You didn't watch it. You're just trying to create a narrative. You're trying to, once again, take away from Michael Jordan's legacy by making it seem like Dennis Rodman was doing X, Y, Z. This guy was doing that. Michael Jordan wasn't doing anything. He was choking it up in there. Blah, 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 blah. Because Michael Jordan did not average 30+ in those finals and did not have, the greatest shooting numbers in the finals. He choked, according to the players or some of these weirdos out here. That's the standard that Michael Jordan's held to, guys. Anyone that watched that series knows Michael Jordan didn't choke. He wasn't great shooting-wise, yeah, but the entire series was like that. No one shot the ball great in that series, man. Nobody. It was very inconsistent shooting-wise. You had two of the best defensive teams in the league that season going against each other. And that's part of the reason why the series was the way it was. So, like I said, I'm listening to Iman Shumpert here. And this dude's talking about the 1996 NBA Finals, guys. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, man. It really doesn't make any sense that what this guy's talking about as far as the 96 Finals. Now, I went back and looked at Iman Shumpert's age because I thought Iman Shumpert was my age. I'm 44 years old. I told you guys many times. You guys know I'm born in 1980, man. Right? 80s baby. I grew up watching the 80s and 90s era of NBA. I've told you guys many times. I remember basketball from 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, man, on. I remember this stuff. 8, 9 years old, 88, 89. I remember a lot of this stuff because, like I said, my dad was big into sports, big into basketball. He would take me and my brothers to watch him play with my father's friends and my uncles, right? I would watch these guys play from a young age. I'm talking about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. My dad was taking me out there with him to the park, and I was watching him play basketball. My dad watched basketball a lot. We listened to it on the radio. So I was always around it, always listening to it, watching it. And like I said, when we grew up back in them days, You had to, the only thing you could do was watch it. Like I said, there were no cell phones or computers like that, or, you know what I'm saying, laptops and, you know, all these different websites that you can go to and check all these highlights and all. You didn't have all this stuff, right? You didn't have all the information at the touch of your fingertips, right? We couldn't go and Google this or Google that. We couldn't go to StatMuse here or Basketball Reference there. Right? Everything was in magazine form or, you know, written form. Or like I said, you have to actually watch this stuff to know who these guys were. And that's how you got educated, right? The broadcasters, the analysts, they educated us and they let us know about the history of the game, right? They gave us the facts, not a bunch of feelings and emotions. They gave us facts so that we could form an opinion, so that we could be educated on this stuff. So I listened to Iman Shumpert's age. He was born in 1990, 10 years after me. So there's no way in hell this dude can sit there and talk about the 1996 finals the way that he was talking about it when you were 6 years old, dude. When the 96 finals went on, you were 6 years old. I was 16, guys, when the 96 finals went on. I remember that. I was 16, guys. Iman Shumpert was 6. So this is not to say that he didn't go back and watch these games later on in his life. If he did, great. I highly doubt he did. Because the way that he spoke on this microphone, this podcast, 100% shows me he has no clue about the 96 finals, guys. No clue. Now, this man said, literally said, that Gary Payton was killing the Chicago Bulls. Now, I believe Iman Shumpert is from Illinois. I think he's from Illinois. Because the way that he was talking in this clip, he kept saying we. Oh, he was killing us. We didn't know what to do. We couldn't stop Gary Payton. This is how he was talking. Us. He was killing us. I don't know why this dude saying we and us, dude, you wasn't on the team. Just because you're from Illinois don't mean a damn thing. I don't talk about we and us when I talk about the Knicks. It's just weird to me. I think that when people say that we and us, when they're talking about their home team, anyway. So he's going through this whole thing, and he's saying Gary Payton was killing. I don't understand, number one, how can Gary Payton be killing the Chicago Bulls when the Bulls were up 3 games to nothing? Is he not aware of this? Does he not realize the Bulls were up 3 games to 0? 3-0. Not 2-2, 2-1, or they were down 0-3. They were blowing out the Seattle Supersonics 3 games to nothing. There were some close games there, but they were beating the Seattle Supersonics handedly. 3-0, and Michael Jordan wasn't even great. Scottie Pippen wasn't great. Tony Kukoc wasn't great. The Bulls were not great as a whole. And they were still up 3 games to nothing. That's why everyone was like, there's nothing that Seattle could do. The Bulls weren't even playing great, and they were still up 3-0. But this guy's saying that Gary Payton was killing the Bulls. When was he killing the Bulls? Gary Payton did not even crack 20 points in the first 3 games, guys. He scored 13 points the first 2 games. And then he scored, I believe, 19 in game 3, if I remember correctly. So then you're telling me a guy who scored 13 in 2 games was killing the Bulls? Gary Payton wasn't killing the Bulls. And you guys know why he wasn't killing the Bulls? Because of Ron Harper and Michael Jordan. That's why. So if you guys don't know, because obviously Iman Shumpert doesn't know, because he didn't mention any of this stuff. In the 1996 NBA Finals, guys, Ron Harper was matched up against Gary Payton at the point guard position. That was his direct matchup. That's who he guarded on defense, Ron Harper. Okay? Michael Jordan guarded Hersey Hawkins, who was their starting shooting guard, who was a certified player, man. A guy who was hard-nosed, gritty, and was a knockdown shooter, Hersey Hawkins. He had the stroke. So Michael Jordan had to guard Hersey Hawkins, and Hersey Hawkins was tough to guard because they would run Michael Jordan through all these screens to get Hersey Hawkins open looks. So Mike Jordan had to fight through screens in all these games, doing this stuff. Like I said, Hersey Hawkins would guard Michael Jordan. Detlef Schrempf would guard Michael Jordan in the first couple of games in the matchup. But Scottie Pippen was matched up with Detlef Schrempf, right? More often than not. Or he was matched up sometimes with Shawn Kemp. Or sometimes he would guard Gary Payton on a switch here or something like that, right? Someone got screened, whatever the case may was. Transition defense, these kinds of things. Same thing with Gary Payton. Gary Payton wasn't necessarily matched up against Michael Jordan the first couple of games. We get that they put Detlef Schrempf on Michael Jordan to cut back on the wear and tear of Gary Payton, who wasn't 100%. So once again, you're giving Gary Payton some rest on D by not making him guard Michael Jordan all game long, which will take away from his offense. So really, like I said, there's only so much you can do with Gary Payton out there. So they wanted to try Detlef Schrempf, who was 6'10", put some size on Michael Jordan. I told you guys, there's no one that can stop Michael Jordan. No one. You wanted to make him work for it. That's all you could do. So like I told you, they would put tall guys, shorter guys, quicker guys. That's what you had to do against Michael Jordan. They tried Detlef Schrempf, who's a very capable defensive player, a very good overall player, who had height, who had some lateral quickness to him. That was a good overall player. But he was never known as a defensive guy, and he can't stop Michael Jordan. Nobody can. Right? So those were the matchups going in, right? Rodman against Kemp. You had, you had Luke Longley against Irvin Johnson or Frank Bukowski, some of these matchups that you had out there, right? Sam Perkins would come in off the bench at the stretch 4, right? And you'd have guys like Rodman having to guard him, or sometimes Pippen would be guarding him. These are the matchups that were out there, right? But the primary defender on Gary Payton those first 2 games was Ron Harper. It was Ron Harper. And I told you guys this before. I don't remember if it was going into game 3 or at the end of game 2 or at the beginning of game. I can't remember what it was. But I remember at one point during the series, they were talking, as Bob Costas was talking to Ron Harper, and he asked Ron Harper about his defensive presence or impact on Gary Payton in the series. And Ron Harper tried to downplay it, but Bob Costas said that people were starting to call Ron Harper the Mitten, right, in response to Gary Payton's nickname of the Glove. And I remember hearing Michael Jordan call Ron Harper the Glove. Like he's called Ron Harper their glove. That's what Michael Jordan called Ron Harper during that series. Because Ron Harper was an integral key member for the Bulls, right? Ron Harper reinvented himself. Shout out to Ron Harper, man, who reinvented himself from a high flyer 20-point per game scorer. Had the knee injury. I believe he tore his ACL in 1990. But before that, Ron Harper was a Michael Jordan-esque type player when he came in the league. Remember, for the Cleveland Cavaliers, Michael Jordan and Ron Harper went against each other several times. And Ron Harper was a high flyer. Like I said, 20-point per game guy. This is who Ron Harper was. 5 rebounds, about 4 assists per game. Solid defensive player. Ron Harper had the knee injury in 91 and was never really the high flyer again after that, but he was still a 20-point per game guy. When he came to Chicago Bulls, he sacrificed that scoring and the offense for defense. He became more of a 3-and-D type guy, right? 3-point shooting wasn't really prevalent like that, but every once in a while, Ron Harper would have these open looks because of Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, the triangle offense. Ron Harper was, that was his job, to play really good defense, bring the ball up the court, initiate the offense, right? Don't turn the ball over, and knock down the open shot every once in a while. Ron Harper wasn't known for being a really good shooter. That was never his thing. But I told you guys what? When they try to promote Steve Kerr for the 1996 Chicago Bulls or for the Bulls' second three-peat, you'll hear people say, oh, Michael Jordan had Steve Kerr. I tell you guys all the time, Steve Kerr is a really good player, man. A solid player. He was solid, right? But Steve Kerr wasn't a great shooter in the finals for the Bulls. He was not. Steve Kerr's best attribute, right, was 1997. He knocked down a jump shot from the free throw line. That wasn't a 3-point shot. Right? His best attribute was coming off the bench and hustling on defense, right? Giving effort on defense. And like I said, playing solid, not making mistakes, knocking down the open shot when you get the opportunity. But Ron Harper shot better from 3-point range in those 3 NBA finals than Steve Kerr did, guys, combined. I told you, Ron Harper shot 27% from the 3-point line in the NBA finals in those second three-peat. Steve Kerr shot 25%, guys. That's just the facts, man. Steve Kerr was not good from 3-point range. But anyway, Ron Harper's impact can't be denied. The way, like I said, that he transformed himself and really just reinvented himself was sensational. And he was an integral part for the Chicago Bulls. Like I told you, it was Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, and then to me, it was Ron Harper, man. Like, yeah, we can argue Tony Kukoc and Ron Harper, but to me, it was Ron Harper. Then someone like Tony Kukoc. To me, it's in that order. But there's no way in hell they should have been promoting Steve Kerr over Ron Harper, but that's what they were doing during The Last Dance, which is comical to me. Ron Harper was much more impactful. But anyway, that was what Ron Harper was doing against Gary Payton in games 1 and 2. Like I said, he held Gary Payton to 13 points in both games. Right? Not just Ron Harper, but the Bulls' defense was excellent. They were the #1 defensive team for a reason. They are great when you have Rodman, Pippen, Jordan, Harper playing defense. That is tough to go against, man. So, as a collective unit, with Ron Harper spearheading the attack on Gary Payton, they were shutting this man down. Iman Shumpert wants you to believe that Gary Payton was killing the Bulls, and then they put Scottie Pippen on him, and that changed everything. I don't know what he's talking about. Because at the end of game 3, Ron Harper hurt his knee. He had like a weird knee injury. They thought it was like tendonitis or something like that. He had to get like a knee surgery in the offseason. But Ron Harper was in intense pain after game 2, right? Hurt his knee and was only able to play 1 minute in game 3. He played 1 minute. He tried to give it a go. Couldn't happen. 1 minute in game 3. You know who took over the defensive responsibilities for Ron Harper on Gary Payton, guys? They have to be Michael Jordan, not Scottie Pippen. So I don't know what the hell Iman Shumpert was talking about. Scottie Pippen was not the guy that jumped Gary Payton after Ron Harper went down or after Gary Payton was destroying the Bulls, even though they were down 3 games to nothing. It wasn't Scottie Pippen. Like I said, did Scottie Pippen guard Gary Payton at certain times in that series? Absolutely. Like I said, your transition defenses, guys switching and all this other kind of stuff. We get all that. But the primary defender on Gary Payton after Ron Harper went down was Michael Jordan, guys. And I've talked about it in videos. This is what Michael Jordan did. He guarded point guards at a high level when it mattered most. I told you guys about him guarding Rod Strickland in the playoffs that year. This is what he does. I remember Scottie Pippen doing a hellified job on Ron Harper in the 98 Eastern Conference Finals. So we're not taking any credit away from Scottie Pippen here, but in this moment, it wasn't Scottie Pippen. It was Michael Jordan, who guarded Gary Payton after Ron Harper went down. He picked up the slack, and they moved everybody down. So if you remember, Ron Harper goes down. They start Tony Kukoc in his place. So everyone slid up a position. Michael Jordan slid to the point guard on defense, right? Scottie Pippen slid up and started guarding Hersey Hawkins on the defensive end, right? He had to run around those screens, and he talked about how hard that was for him to chase Hersey Hawkins around all these screens, getting beat up and pushed around, doing this stuff. He wasn't used to that, he said. He was used to guarding the small forward guys. So then you had to match Kukoc up with Detlef Schrempf, and you had Kemp and Rodman, right? And you had Luke Longley and Irvin Johnson. These were the matchups, guys. That's what happened. It wasn't Pippen jumping Payton. That's not what happened, guys. It was Michael Jordan taking that responsibility. And then guys like Randy Brown coming off the bench to give Michael Jordan a little blow, to give him a little assistance against Gary Payton. Like I said, yeah, other guys would help out on switches. You saw that happen. I saw Michael Jordan guarding Shawn Kemp in some points. I saw Shawn Kemp guarding Michael Jordan at some points in the post. Things happened during the game, but the primary defender was Michael Jordan after Ron Harper went down. And it was Ron Harper who came back in Game 6. Because remember, Ron Harper only played, I believe, 15 minutes between Games 3, 4, and 5. He played 15 minutes. He played 1 minute in each one of those games and 13 minutes, and I believe in maybe Game 5 it was. But he came back in Game 6 on one leg. Tears in his eyes, they said. Ron Harper was in so much pain. The man had tears in his eyes, he said. But he gave the effort. He went out there for his team so they can earn it. That's what Ron Harper did. That's how tough these guys were back in the day. They had heart and grit. They showed up. And these guys weren't getting all that money. But Ron Harper went out there on one leg in the finals and in Game 6, and the Bulls had lost 2 in a row. And everybody was like, oh no, what's up with the Bulls? What are they going to do? What's wrong with this guy? What's wrong with that guy? Ron Harper came back for that team on one leg and played, I believe, 33 minutes in that Game 6. Didn't really shoot the ball well, missed a lot of shots, but he was there doing the other things, the dirty work, the intangibles, helping out on the defensive end, giving that effort, and being a key member. That's why I always tell you guys, the players from the Bulls that play with Michael Jordan, they all earned it. They earned their spot in those teams. Someone like Ron Harper, right? Steve Kerr, the Luke Longleys, the Tony Kukocs, the Randy Browns, the Judd Bushlers, the Bison Deles, right? These guys went there and earned it. They earned their spot on the team, so they were able to come through at different points in times. There was moments in that series where Luke Longley was the second best player behind Michael Jordan. He stepped up in some of those moments. Tony Kukoc stepped up in a couple of those games. Rodman was big in those games. Pippen had some flashes, but he was really inconsistent. Everyone shot poorly in that series on both sides. No one shot high percentages like that. That's why I laugh when people say, oh, Michael Jordan choked or he struggled. Everyone struggled. It was a defensive finals. You're the number 1 defensive team, Chicago Bulls, the number 2 defensive team, Seattle Supersonics, with good defenders all around. I mean, some of the names you put out here, these are all-time great defenders. But they want to try to, once again, Iman Shumpert wants to try to rewrite history here and say that Scottie Pippen is the reason that he turned the series. This is what we're doing now? It was Scottie Pippen. Way off. So I said, Iman Shumpert, born in 1990, he doesn't know. He just doesn't know. He was 6 years old when the finals went down. And like I said, you could tell he didn't go back and watch this stuff. He's not being educated. I don't know what he was talking about in that podcast. He just started talking crazy. I don't understand how Gary Payton could be killing the Bulls when they lost the first 3 games. The man scored 13 points in the first 2 games. I think he scored 19 in the third. Michael Jordan was doing what he was doing. Not great percentages, but still leading the team. There's something that we must mention also that people don't even think about. It's not I know people don't know basketball. Whenever you hear people bring up Dennis Rodman or the offensive rebounding of Dennis Rodman in that finals, which was outstanding, I always tell people, can someone name you who he was going against down low? Dennis Rodman did what he was supposed to do. He dominated the boards against a team that had no dominant rebounder. Their best rebounder was Shawn Kemp. And Shawn Kemp was a good rebounder, but he wasn't a great rebounder. He's not a big body. Shawn Kemp's rebounding came off his athleticism, his second jump ability. Right? That's what he did. Same thing with his shot blocking. It came off his jumping ability, his instincts and timing. But he wasn't necessarily a shot blocker or a rebounder like that. But he's a very good rebounder. But who else was on there? Irvin Johnson, not a rebounder. Frank Bukowski, Detlef Schrempf. There was no hellified rebounders like that. Dennis Rodman took advantage of their team, and that's what he's supposed to do. So he dominated that. That's number 1. Number 2, a lot of people don't mention or fail to realize Why do you guys think that Dennis Rodman was able to get so many offensive rebounds? Now, obviously, because of his skills, his effort, hustle, he's Dennis Rodman. We get all of that. But there's another part to this, guys. When you watch those games, if you play basketball, then you know this. What happened during that series? Like I said, because they were struggling shooting the ball percentage-wise, Michael Jordan, in fact, more specifically I'm talking about here. Michael Jordan, as that series went on, what did he do? He decided to put more and more pressure on the Seattle Supersonics defense by driving the lane, attacking the paint, attacking Detlef Schrempf, attacking Gary Payton, Hersey Hawkins, Nate McMillan, whoever was guarding him. He put pressure on the defense. So when Michael Jordan drives the lane, what does that do to the other defenders that help defenders? They squeeze on Michael Jordan, right? So what does that do for Dennis Rodman? It leaves him open on the backside for offensive rebounds. Now, I'm not saying that every offensive rebound was because of Michael Jordan and his aggression to the rim. That's not what I'm saying. That's insane. What I'm saying is that was a part of that. Was Michael Jordan giving Dennis Rodman that avenue? Because if he's driving the lane and beats him off the dribble, Sean Kemp comes over to help. Brikowski comes over to help. Detlef Schrempf comes over to help. Or, whoever comes over, they're coming over in assistance for the defense. That's how you play help defense, right? Guys slide over, guys rotate. So on the backside, it leaves Dennis Rodman sometimes at an advantage where guys are not in a position to box him out. So he's there getting the rebound. They're falling into his lap, essentially. So we have to give Michael Jordan a lot of credit for that, and Dennis Rodman credit. But people try to act like Dennis Rodman was out there just grabbing Michael Jordan's misses. Oh, Michael Jordan was missing everything, and Dennis Rodman was saving him. I've heard people say that. It's insane. Look how many times Michael Jordan went to the free throw line, and look at how many times he made his free throws. He knocked them down when it mattered. He put the pressure on them. In Game 6, Michael Jordan led them in scoring and assists, and was second in rebounds. He did a lot of things in that series. Didn't shoot a great percentage, but didn't have to because he could fall back on his defense and other things. So he could hold Gary Payton down when Ron Harper went down. Make those adjustments. Attack the rim. Put those guys on their heels. Put them in foul trouble. That's leadership. That's knowing your game, knowing your personnel. So I don't know what the hell Iman Shumpert's talking about. Scottie Pippen did not come in and save the Bulls. He didn't guard Payton like that. That was Ron Harper and then Michael Jordan. That's who did it. Stepping up. Those are the facts. Iman Shumpert, you've been educated. Please, my man, stop talking about the 90s era of NBA. You weren't around for it. Talk about the 2000s, maybe the 2010s. I keep telling you guys, I can tell when these people speak. And it's not even always just about how old you are when you were born. I can tell when you speak that you did not watch this stuff. You didn't watch it. I'm telling you because if you did, you would speak with a lot more respect. And you would speak with facts, not your emotions and some weird statements that don't add up. Okay, those are the facts, guys. I just educated you in 96 files, man. You guys know the deal, man. Once again, shout out to my man BTG the Don and everyone that continues to support my channel, guys. Thank you very much, man. You guys know the deal. I'll catch you guys on the next one.